Change is inevitable. It's around us and it's happening. What do we have to do to get ready for it? Because if we don't go with change, then dire things happen. Today's episode, we're going to talk about how you can go with the flow. Let's go get that nugget. Welcome to Life Mastery Podcast. I'm Jen Mack, Lady of the Mind, your host, energy healer, and intuitive coach. This is where we learn to master our lives and ignite our spirit, one nugget at a time. Hey guys, it's Jen Mack, Lady of the Mind. Welcome to today's episode where I hope you are adapting to change. If you're not adapting to change, certainly not easily, then it is my intention that in today's episode, I give you just one nugget of inspiration towards your transformation. Now, change is all around us. I talk about it all the time. It is inevitable. It is inevitable that we change. It is like this developmental thing. It's the process of nature, and it's the process of our nature, right? If we didn't change, think about this for a second. If we didn't change, you'd still be dating the guy or the girl that you dated when you were in 7th grade. Like maybe you are. Maybe that's your lifetime sweetheart. But maybe you're not, and maybe you're glad. You'd have the same hairstyle. You would still be crawling around on the floor. You'd still be in diapers. See? So when we look at it a little bit different, right, we get to get a little excited that change is inevitable and some change is really good. Here's another one. What if you had the same job that you had the summer that you were 16 years old? Still scooping ice cream or raking leaves or changing diapers at the sitter, you know? So when we stand back and look at our lives and we see that change is inevitable and we see that there has been some really good things coming from change that maybe we didn't elicit, you know, like we get into a relationship, we get into a job, we don't like it, and we want to now make that change happen. This is kind of where we can stand back and go, there's going to be this path of our lives that is going to change as we grow up and as we go through these different sections of our lives, these different chapters, if you will. And if we can sit back and just kind of enjoy the ride, it's going to be more fun. Now, I want to tell you a story. I don't want you to freak out, but I want to tell you a story about something that's happening. I'm not sure where it's going. I'm not sure what I'm going to do yet, but this is a perfect story to combine to today's episode. And maybe throughout the episode, I will come up with a decision. But the platform that I host my podcast, this podcast that you're listening to, not on Spotify or Apple, that part, but the part where I upload and I actually have my library of all of my episodes, is going away. So I've been looking for a new platform. It was a little bit of a surprise. You know that within technology, you know, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, all of those, even Google, you know, Amazon, all of those platforms change over time. They become simpler, more user-friendly. But this particular one, that it has changed in the last 12 months, like 3 times. And it hasn't been more user-friendly. And that's not the part that I'm annoyed about. I mean, I always get annoyed when things are easy. There's like 3 steps to doing something, to uploading an episode, let's say, to now Spotify bought Anchor, and all of this doesn't really matter, but Spotify bought Anchor. And Anchor was a platform I was using. And now Spotify made those 3 steps into like 7 steps, which is annoying to me. I don't know if it annoys you, but it annoys me. And then now Spotify is getting rid of the actual episode creation page. And they're sending us over to this other platform. I looked at the other platform and it was like, no way, way too complicated, way too much for me to try to learn. You know, I love to learn things, but when it comes to technology and I love how things are going, that's when I don't want to change things. So of course I dig my heels in, right? I don't want things to change when things are simple and easy. So I'm forced with this change. It is happening. There's nothing I can do about it. And I am recording this today. It is February 18th. And by the beginning of June, all of this part of the platform will disappear. Now, that also leaves me to do 2 things. 1, I could throw a temper tantrum, which I did for a little while. 2, I could also get on board with new things changing. So I've been also toying around with changing the name of my podcast. I don't want to share it yet because I'll probably change my name. I won't change my name. Will change my mind. I'm still going to be Jen Mack. Anyway, but I might change the name of the podcast. So instead of, it was Life Mastery Decoded originally, and it was like decoding the mysteries of life so you can master your life. And then it was Life Mastery for Women. And then I found that there was a couple of really cool guys that were listening to the podcast. I'm like, okay, I don't want to segregate, so let's not have it be just for women, though women is my, are more my listeners. That's still a high percentage. But then it was the Life Mastery podcast. I think it's going to change completely. And so I'm toying around with the idea. Now, if you are listening to my podcast and you want to be a part of the name creation, I would love to hear your ideas. But there's this piece that I want my podcast to grow. I want more listeners. I want to touch more lives. I want people and women or whoever to be a part of this community. And I want this community to grow. So I feel like the name of my podcast is a block, that's not being found. The SEO isn't working. All of those technological things, the behind the scenes things that we do as creators to get our podcast out there. But as this change, this something is forcing this. Like this is called divine intervention. Something outside of me is creating this scenario that is forcing me to change. Now, as a businesswoman, an entrepreneur, and a creator, and a podcaster, and a coach, and a speaker, and all these things, what am I going to do with this information? And this is what's leading me to the steps to help you to adjust when change is inevitable and change is in front of you. The very first thing is to realize that change is going to happen. It doesn't mean we have to brace ourselves for big traumatic events, but some change is going to happen. So it allows us to, or forces us really, to be more flexible. Now, here's kind of this eye-opening thing. As I rounded the corner to about 45 years old, I started realizing that my body was feeling kind of stiff. And I am an advocate, huge advocate for looking at what my body is doing, how my body is responding, what's happening in my body, pain or stiffness or joint stuff or whatever, and then looking at the spiritual meaning behind it. Well, as my body was getting stiffer, I'm like, okay. And you've heard me say this. People say, well, welcome to old age. I'm like, no, that's not it. I don't believe in that. And I know that is a collective belief that as we age, we get slower, we get fatter, we get stiffer, things don't move like they used to, whatever. And I don't agree with that. It is a collective belief. So it's a really big belief to combat, if you will. But I don't believe that is the reason why our bodies get stiff. And I know I'm getting a little sidetracked here, but when I started looking at how my body was feeling, 5 or so years ago, 6 years ago now, and stiff, and what does stiff mean? Stiff is rigid. And my personality was a little bit more rigid. I'm like, yeah, I need to be more flexible. And it's been something that I've been working on. Not only being more flexible when change happens and when it starts showing up, but looking forward to it. So we turned the corner of the new year, and I love looking at the possibilities. Like I try to plan out, my business like 12 months, and it's hard to do. It's hard to do that, but I want to. And I'm a client of a business coaching program and learning how to look farther out into the time, look farther out into the year. And as I started going inward and thinking about things that I was like not going. I'm not going with the flow. My body is stiff. I'm rigid. Where can I be more flexible? And this was one of those things. So here's an example. As I create these podcasts, I record them ahead of time and I try to get 3 out a week. And I remember I don't have any topics to think about, and I'm trying to like force it, right? And nothing was happening. I couldn't come up with something to talk about. And then all of a sudden I'm like, okay, just let it go. Let it go. We're going to go with the flow. This was all part of my process of step number 1 is realizing that change is going to happen and being more in the flow and being more flexible. And I started to recognize that ideas were starting to come to me as I would relax about the topic. All of a sudden I would, making lunch, I'm like, okay, I'll just let it sit there for a minute. Basically, I call it, let it marinate for a little while. And then I'll come back to it, or maybe just an idea will show up. And sure enough, I'd get this really great idea and I'd record this podcast and I'd get done and I'm like, wow, like that was a really good podcast. Like I really resonated with that. And I really hope that resonated with my listeners. And I started doing that over and over again. I started recognizing that step is just realizing that change is going to happen and then being okay with it, because if I let go, something new showed up and it was kind of exciting. Then that means that human version of me didn't have to work so hard. So as this changed my podcast going, okay, hey, just to let you guys know that by the beginning of June, all of this whole platform is disappearing. I'm like, oh my God, of course you freak out. But then I sat back in it and I'm like, this is going to give me an opportunity to really dig in to what I want to create in the world. What do I want to bring to potential listeners that have been following my podcast or new people who will find my podcast? What new exciting thing could I bring about? So put a little plug in this for later. As this is unfolding, I'm going to help this unfold for you as we go along, that I thought this was a really good lesson that I'm sitting in. I'm marinating some different podcast name or title ideas. I'm thinking of how the platform might change a little bit, and the intros and the outros and what I might say. But though I'm still going to be called Lady of the Mind, and I'm still going to say things like, hey guys, it's Jen Mack, Lady of the Mind. Welcome to today's podcast. I just love that. That just really just fell out one day, and I just love it. And I may or may not keep that. But it's kind of exciting that things are turning a corner and I'm okay with it. So then this and I kind of already wrapped in, but step 2 is don't force it, like me forcing the name of a podcast, and letting it come to me and letting it unfold naturally. It's like you can't force the river to turn left when you want it to turn left. It's going to go in the easiest flow. It's going the way it goes, which is what creates the beauty in nature. Let's start going and paying attention to what nature is doing and start going with the flow. How amazing would that be? And to wrap the whole thing up, come full circle, my body started becoming less stiff. My back feels amazing. My body physically feels amazing. And it's feeling more flexible because I'm becoming more flexible. Interesting, isn't it? So put a little bookmark in that. The third step is to let go and surrender. Now, this was a big, big message that I was getting for years and years and years. And I'm like, no way am I surrendering. The terminology that I get from the word surrender doesn't sit well with me. It feels like I'm giving up. It feels like I'm letting somebody else control me. But when I think of the river and I think of getting in the kayak or getting in the tube and it's this hot day, the last thing I want to do is control anything. I just want to relax. I want to go with the flow. And I use that analogy all the time is when we get in the river, we don't go upstream. We don't go upriver. We get in and we're just immediately pushed downriver. If you had to stand there all day, you'd get really tired, wouldn't you? And what do you have to do in your body so you don't fall over? You have to stand stiff. You have to brace yourself. I don't want to live my life like that. And I hope you don't want to live your life like that either. The last, and this is the fun part, is allowing the opportunities and the possibilities to come up, is to visualize a positive outcome. I don't know for 100% yet what the new name of my podcast is going to be. I don't know what the new framework is going to be, like the structure of the podcast. I don't know what it's going to be. But you know what? I'm excited. I'm more excited than I am dreading it. I remember I was a sign language interpreter for a long time. I graduated 1990, and I had already learned sign language. I taught myself. I worked at a speech and hearing camp, and I had this camp of kids, probably 7 or 8 kids, young. They were 6, 7, 8 years old, and 7 of the 8 of them were deaf. And so I learned sign language, and I just loved it. I fell in love with it. I went to the library. I pulled every book out, off the shelf and took it home, and I studied it, and I learned from them, and it was so great and so amazing. I went to school, I went to college, and became a sign language interpreter, and it was a lot of fun for me. And this one time in this class, I had this one instructor for sign language, sign language 101 or something. And the next semester, and this was my first year in college, the next semester was a different teacher. And I thought it was going to be the same teacher that I had for 101. And I was so mad. I immediately didn't like her. I didn't even give her a chance. I hardly talked in class. I was like, I'm not doing anything in this class. I can't stand this. I don't even know what's going on. And it was like this big deal. I was very dramatic. I was 17 years old when I just turned, I'm a September birthday. I just turned 18 when I went to college. So I'm in this class with this woman and this teacher, and she's great. She's great. By the end of the semester, somewhere throughout those 16 weeks, I kind of like went with the flow. I'm like, okay, I'm going to give her a chance. Like, I've never done this before. I've not been in college. I didn't know it was going to be a different instructor. I was really upset because I really liked the other instructor, I ended up becoming friends with her. I'm still friends with her today. And she ended up actually becoming my favorite teacher. And it was just so interesting, but I had to let it go. I had to let go and surrender. I had to step into the possibilities of what if this is the thing that reaches all of the people? What if this is the podcast, the name, the title, the difference, the format, the framework that really like launches my business, helps people, and allows those people to find me, and I get to reach more lives, and I get to teach more people, and maybe it even turns into other opportunities. What an amazing way to look at change. What an amazing way to look at change. Because, and I've told you about this too, the bad relationship that I was in for 4 years, and I always talk about it in that's a relationship that should have lasted 4 days, but it lasted 4 stinking years. And it was like the worst 4 years of my life. If change didn't happen, I'd still be there, and I wouldn't have what I have today, which is an amazing, loving, supportive, holy crap. It's like we're best friends, newlyweds every day. People hate being around us. They either love us and we're inspiring, or they hate us. But I have that, and a family. I have 3 boys, and I just love it. I have a family, and I wasn't going to have that. And it's an amazing journey. And it's an amazing journey of change. So here's my homework for you if you want to try it out, is to look back over your life, especially if you have a hard time with change. Look back over at your life and see the things that would be different if you didn't change, or if the environment didn't change, or the situation. You'd still be married to that guy. You'd still be living in Kentucky. You'd still would be, you can go back all the way when you were little. You wouldn't know how to ride a bike. You wouldn't know how to drive a car. You wouldn't know how to make your own meals. You wouldn't know how to walk, right? From the very second we breathe air and we become human beings on this planet, we are destined for change from right now till the end of our days. Change is inevitable. We might as well learn how to go with it. We might as well learn how to enjoy it, relish in it, think of it as a positive way, use it to our advantage. And so if you're a person in business, firsthand, change is inevitable. It is around every single corner, from different customers that walk in the door, or clients, or whoever you work with, to different modalities that you use in your business, to technology that you use. I couldn't tell you how many times we've changed technology. Technology is fast. If you're not changing and you're not adapting, where are you going? What are you doing? And who is suffering? Because my body started to suffer. I could feel it. I could feel that I was standing in the river of life, and I was bracing myself against the current of life. And I don't want that for you. So let me tell you the steps again. Number 1, realize that it's going to happen. There's nothing you can do about it. You can't change it. You can't change. You can prepare yourself for it. And this is a way you can do that. The next is, don't force it. Don't force change. Allow it to happen. I can't, I'm trying to force the name of my podcast, or I'm trying to force where I'm going to go, or what new technology I'm going to use, or what new platform I'm going to upload in. And you guys will all get all of this. It'll be in the show notes. I'm going to talk about it throughout the journey, but don't try to force it to happen. Force is the opposite of allowing. Force is the stiffness. That's the bracing yourself. So don't force change to happen. The next is let go and surrender. Feel into what those words feel like to you. Let go. Get in the river and just let go and trust. It takes a lot of trust to do that. And it's hard. Those words even coming out of my mouth almost feels like hypocrisy, where I'm like, Jen, you had a hard time trusting. I'm like, right. But you know what? As I turned the corner of this new year, that was the ongoing message that I kept getting. Let go and trust. Let go and trust. And I am practicing that. I am now practicing, shouldn't say now, but I am practicing what I preach. Let go and trust. Let go. Let go and just try it on and see how it feels. And the last one is to visualize a positive outcome. You don't have to visualize anything clear, but just what if? What if on the other side of this, something amazing is going to happen? I don't know the name of my podcast. I don't know the name it's going to change, if it's going to change, But I do know this. Whenever that turns around, whatever happens, however the business blossoms, it's going to be amazing. That's what I want for you. Thank you very much for listening. I hope that this podcast episode found you in just this new possibility to embrace change and to just go with the flow. Wow, that may have felt like a lot of information in today's episode, but if you're looking for support and a deeper knowledge of what we talked about today, then let's connect. You can learn more about how I work and how you can work with me. Send me an email to the meditationroomtc@gmail.com, subject line, let's talk. And in the meantime, you can join my online Facebook community, Lady Rising, and mention that you came in through the podcast. I look forward to supporting you and connecting with you there.